Jayaatu Khan, born Tugh Temür, also known by the temple name Wenzong, was an emperor of the Yuan dynasty. Apart from Emperor of China, he is regarded as the 12th great Khan of the Mongol Empire or Mongols, although it was only nominal due to the division of the empire. He first ruled from the 16th of October 1328 to the 3rd of April 1329 before abdicating in favor of his brother Jayaatu Khan Kusala, and again ruled from the 8th of September 1329 to the 2nd of September 1332 after Jayaatu Khan Kusala's death. Thanks to his father's loyal partisans, Tugh Temür did restore the line of qaγan to the throne, but persecuted his eldest brother Kusala's family, and later expressed remorse for what he had done to him. His name means blessed, lucky Khan, in the Mongolian language. Tugh Temür sponsored many cultural activities, wrote poetry, painted, and read the classical texts. Examples of his quite competent poetry and calligraphy have survived. He mandated and closely monitored the compilation called the Imperial Dynasty's Grand Institutions for managing the world. Through this textual production, he proclaimed his reign as new beginning, which took stock of the administrative practices and rules of the past and looked forward to a fresh chapter in Mongolian dynastic governance. But his reign was brief, and his administration was in the hands of powerful ministers, such as Temür of the Kipchak and Bayan of the Merkid, who had helped him to win the succession struggle in 1328. Early life. He was the second son of qaγan and a Tangut woman, and a younger brother of Kusala. When his father qaγan suddenly died and his younger brother Jayaatu inherited leadership in 1311, he and his brother were removed from the central government by his grandmother Daji and other qaγan faction members, including Temür, since they were not mothered by qaγan khatunts. After Jayaatu's son Shidi ascended the throne in 1320, Tugh Temür was banished to Hainan. When Shidi was assassinated and Yeson Temür took over as the new ruler, conditions improved for Tugh Temür. He was given the title of Prince of Huai and relocated to Jiangkang and then to Jiangling. By this time he already showed a wide range of scholarly and artistic interests and had surrounded himself with many distinguished Chinese literati and artists. As the persecuted sons of qaγan Kilug Khan, Tugh Temür and Kusala still enjoyed a measure of sympathy among the Borjigin princes and, more importantly, the lingering loyalty of some of their father's followers who had survived various political purges. Civil war. The death of Yeson Temür Khan in Shangdu in 1328 gave qaγan's line an opportunity to surface, but it was mainly due to Temür's political ingenuity, whose Kipchak family reached its zenith under qaγan. He activated a conspiracy in the capital Khanbalik to overthrow the court at Shangdu. He and his entourages enjoyed enormous geographical and economic advantages over the loyalists of Yeson Temür. Tugh Temür was recalled to Khanbalik by Temür since his more influential brother Kusala stayed in faraway Central Asia. He was installed as the new ruler in Khanbalik in September, while Yeson Temür's son Rajabah succeeded to the throne in Shangdu with the support from Yeson Temür's favorite retainer Daulat Shah. Rajabah's forces broke through the Great Wall at several points, and penetrated as far as the outskirts of Khanbalik. Temür, however, was able to turn the tide of quickly in his favor. The restorationists from Manchuria and eastern Mongolia launched a surprise attack on the loyalists. Their army under the command of Bukhar Temür and Orlug Temür, descendants of Genghis Khan's brothers, surrounded Shangdu on 14 November. At a time most of the loyalists were involved on the Great Wall front, the loyalists in Shangdu surrendered on the very next day, and Daulat Shah and most of the leading loyalists were taken prisoner and later executed. Rajabah was reported to be missing. With the surrender of Shangdu, the way to restoring qaγan's imperial line was cleared, although the loyalists elsewhere continued the fighting until 1332. Regicide and purge. At the same time, however, his elder brother Jayaatu Khan Kusala gathered support from princes and generals in Mongolia and Chagatai Khanate and entered Karakoram with the overwhelming military presence. Realizing disadvantages, Tugh Temür declared abdication and summoned his brother, accompanied by the Chagatai Khan Jayaatu. Kusala in response enthroned himself on 27 February 1329 north of Karakoram. Temür brought the imperial seal to Kusala in Mongolia and announced Daju's intent to welcome him, and Tugh Temür was made heir apparent. According to an oral tradition, Kusala's retainers treated him discourteously when he came to the camp of Kusala, thus making him both fearful and angry. But Kusala thanked Temür and appointed him Grand Counselor of the right wing of the Secretariat with the title of Darkhan Taishi. Kusala had proceeded to appoint his own loyal followers to important posts in the Secretariat, the Bureau of Military Affairs, and the Censorate. On his way to Dadu, on 26 August, Kusala met with Tugh Temür in Onghukad near Shangdu. Only 4 days after a banquet with Tugh Temür, he suddenly died, or was supposedly killed with poison by Temür, who feared losing power to princes and officers of Chagatai Khanate and Mongolia who followed Kusala. Tugh Temür was restored to the throne on 8 September 1329. His conspiracy and victory over the loyalists and the death of Kusala eliminated the power of the steppe candidates from Mongolia. Tugh Temür's administration carried out a bloody purge against its enemies. Not only leading supporters of Yeson Temür's successor Ragibar were executed and exiled, but their properties were confiscated. Tugh Temür denied posthumous names of Yeson Temür and Ragibar, and destroyed the chamber in the imperial shrine which contained the tablet of Yeson Temür's father Gamala. Temür purged pro-Kusala officers and brought power to warlords. Reign. Efforts to win recognition because Tugh Temür's accession was so transparently illegitimate. It was more important for his regime than for any previous reign to rely on liberal infoffments and generous awards to rally support from the nobility and officialdom. During his 4-year reign, 24 princely titles were handed out, 9 of which were of the first rank. Of these 9 first-rank princes, 7 were not even Kublai Khan's descendants. Not only were the imperial grants restored in 1329, but all the properties confiscated from the Shangdu loyalists also were given to princes and officials who had made contributions to the restoration. In all, 125 individual properties are estimated to have changed hands. Action was also taken to win recognition from the other Mongol Khanates to be accepted as their nominal suzerain. Tugh Temür sent 3 princes with lavish gifts to the Golden Horde, the Chagatai Khanate and the Il Khanate, and he also sent Mukhali's descendant Namantate Jayaatu, who strongly supported Kusala, to give the royal seal and gifts in order to mollify his anger. However, Tugh Temür made regarding success, and saw favorable responses. Thus Tugh Temür was able to re-establish suzerainty over the Mongol world for himself and to maintain a close relationship with the 3 western Khanates. Administration and court life. The 4-year reign of Jayaatu Khan Tugh Temür was dominated by Temür and Bayan of the Merkid, as the persons who had been chiefly responsible for making the restoration possible. They acquired a measure of power and honor that had never before been attained by any official in the Yuan. They built their own power bases in the bureaucracy and the military, and their role overshadowed Tugh Temür. Tugh Temür honored his father's former ministers and gave them honorific titles, and restored the honors of Sanpo and Toto who had been persecuted by Ayabawada. The participants in the restoration were given most of the positions of importance in his administration. A few of the Muslims held posts in provinces, however, they did not have any position in the central government. In the latter part of 1330 the emperor went in person to perform the great sacrifice to the sky, which was done by deputy. This was followed by a general amnesty, and by the proclamation of his young son Aratnadara as heir apparent in January 1331. Tugh Temür's consort Budashiri, having a grudge against Babusha, the widow of Kusala, had her assassinated by an eunuch. Then she sent Kusala's son Tugh Temür in exile to Korea to secure her son's succession, but Aratnadara died 1 month after his designation as heir. This sudden death of his son completely upset Tugh Temür's plan for succession. Jayaatu Khan Tugh Temür caused his another son, Gunadara, to live with Temür and recognize him as his father, and changed his name to Taiguz. Because a budget deficit of the government drastically increased, and reached 2.3 million ding of paper currency in 1330 alone, Tugh Temür's court attempted to curtail its spending on such items as imperial grants, Buddhist sacrifices, and palace expenses. With those measures, they could keep the budget deficit within manageable figure, and had sufficient grain reserves at its disposal. Rebellion, the added costs of the war against the loyalists and the suppression of the revolts by the ethnic minorities, and natural disasters heavily taxed resources of Tugh Temür's government. The war in Yunnan continued with doubtful success, but the imperial general Aratnashiri, having collected an army of 100,000 men, defeated the lawless and other mountaineers, and killed 2 of their chiefs. He seems to have quelled the rebellion and pacified Yunnan and Sichuan. Lo Yu, one of the rebel chiefs in Yunnan, had escaped to the mountains. He collected a body of his people, and, dividing them into 60 small parties, overran the country of Chunyuan, where they committed frightful devastation. A force marched against them, and Tugh Temür's army stormed their chief stronghold. 3 sons and 2 brothers of Prince Tugh were made prisoners, while a third brother drowned himself rather than fall into the hands of the imperial army. Tugh's partisans gave up their cause in March 1332. This campaign costed 630,000 ding of paper currency. Tugh Temür, who preferred luxury life, hardly deigned to show any interest in this distant campaign. The condicate of the emperor caused much discontent, and Yelu Timur, son of Ananda, who attempted to take the throne in 1307, in conjunction with the heads of the Lama religion in China, formed a plot to displace him, but this was discovered, and they were duly punished. Academy, Arts and Learning. Tugh Temür had a good knowledge of the Chinese language and history, and was also a creditable poet, calligrapher, and painter. With his actual power greatly circumscribed by Temür, Tugh Temür is known for his cultural contribution. Posing as a cultivated sovereign of the Yuan, Tugh Temür adopted many measures honoring Confucianism and promoting Chinese cultural values. In 1330, he awarded laudatory titles to several past Confucian sages and masters, and himself performed the suburban offerings to heaven, and thus became the first Yuan emperor to perform in person this important traditional Chinese state observance. To promote Confucian morality, the court each year honored many men and women who were known for their filial piety and chastity. To prevent the Chinese from following Mongolian and hence un-Confucian customs, the government decreed in 1330 that men who took their widowed stepmothers or sister-in-law as wives, in violation of their own community's customs, would be punished. In the meantime, to encourage the Mongols and the Muslims to follow the Chinese customs, the officials of these 2 ethnic groups were allowed in 1329 to observe the Chinese custom of 3 years of mourning for deceased parents. He supported Zhu Zai's Neo-Confucianism and also devoted himself in Buddhism. He supervised the construction of the stupa of Master Zhaozhou in the Buddhist Bela Temple. His most concrete effort to patronize Chinese learning was his founding of the Academy of the Pavilion of the Star of Literature, first established in the spring of 1329, and was designed to undertake a number of tasks relating to the transmission of Confucian high culture to the Mongolian imperial establishment. These tasks included the elucidation of the Confucian classics and Chinese history to the emperor, the education of the scions of high-ranking notables and the younger members of the Kesig, the collection, collation, and compilation of books, and the appraisal and classifications of the paintings and calligraphic works in the imperial collection. Of the 113 officials successively serving in the academy, there were many distinguished Chinese literati, and the best Mongolian and Muslim scholars of Chinese learning of the time. Concentrating so many talents in one governmental organ to perform various literary, artistic, and educational activities was unprecedented not only in the Yuan dynasty but also in Chinese history. The Academy was responsible for compiling and publishing a number of books, but its most important achievement was its compilation of a vast institutional compendium named Jingxi Dadian. The purpose of bringing together and systematizing all important Yuan official documents and laws in this work according to the pattern of Huiyao of the Tang and Song dynasties was apparently to demonstrate that Yuan rule was as perfect as that of earlier Chinese dynasties. Started in May 1330, this ambitious project was completed in 13 months. It later provided the basis for the various treatises of the Yuanshi, which was compiled at the beginning of the Ming dynasty. Later life due to the fact that the bureaucracy was dominated by Temür, whose despotic rule clearly marked the decline of the empire. The actual impact of the Academy of the Pavilion of the Star of Literature on the government as a whole was limited. Temür eventually seized control of the Academy in early 1332, just 6 months before the death of Tugh Temür. The Academy had come to an end after Tugh Temür's death. Although Taiguz was still alive, on his deathbed Tugh Temür expressed remorse for what he had done to his elder brother, Kusala, and his intention to pass the throne to Tophan Temür. After Jayaatu Khan, Tugh Temür died on the 2nd of September 1332. Kusala's second son Rinkenbal was installed by Temür only at the age of 6 because Tophan Temür was far away from the central government.